everybody, and welcome to Pastrami Nation Presents. It's our new series where we tackle one topic at a time in the world of pop culture. My name is Nolan Smith. I'm the editor and co-founder of Pastrami Nation. And joining me once again is probably the smartest guy I know when it comes to technology, John O'Connor. Welcome, John.
Well, thanks, man. You're making me blush on camera. Thank you.
Last time we
Awesome.
talked, we chatted about the battle of AI art.
Hmm.
And we had you and Christian Nakoda on here, and we talked about AI. Art AI, is it beneficial? Is it detrimental? So today I want to talk about AI and kind of like I mean, I'm not a politician, but like the state of the union of what AI is right now. Like, how has it changed and transformed since we last talked? And go from there. So first, of course, AI is everywhere, right? It's everywhere, and any way we can think of. Chat GPT became this massive thing that everybody uses. So since we last spoke, is Chat GPT still like the front runner for people using AI to make text content or any content, or is there something else now that people should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, so great question. I think ChatGPT represents the current state of the art still, and it still represents the easiest on-ramp for people to get into AI. So if you want to start using AI in a business or in, a lot of different contexts, ChatGPT is probably a good place to start. It's just very accessible, very easy. But there are a lot of other tools out there that you can use that do different things. So ChatGPT is in the landscape of things, it fits in this very specific box of large language model. And large language models are AI that are trained on a large amount of information, the entirety of the internet essentially, and it recognizes patterns in text, and its entire purpose is to predict the next word that's going to come in a sentence, right? Now, that's valuable in a lot of ways. And there's a really famous paper in, I think, 2018 that described how you could use that, add a little bit of information like a prompt, which is what we call prompting now, add a little piece of information to guide the text model and get some really interesting results. And if you go into the academic literature, you can see some really interesting behaviors emerging out of large language models, things that weren't planned in there, like the ability to reason. And just by adding a simple phrase like let's think step by step, you can get a large language model to answer correctly, whereas previously it may have answered incorrectly. So that's the whole field of prompt engineering, is the idea that you can take a prompt, you can add these little pieces to it and affect the behavior of the large language model to make it better for specific purposes. Now, that's large language models, and there are a bunch of those coming out. So there's an open source one from Meta called Llama, LLAMA 2. That's a very high end, similar to ChatGPT size model, open source, so you can download it on your own computers. You're going to need pretty big computers and lots of memory to actually run it effectively. But those models are making it possible for other companies to work on AI applications outside of these big silos of like OpenAI and Google with their Gemini model. There are also new techniques. There's one called Mistral, and I don't have it up here, but Mistral is essentially what they call a matrix of experts. So it takes eight smaller language models that are, or smaller, it takes eight smaller AI models that are specific purpose, and it allows you to feed in your prompt, and then it decides from those eight models which one gets the task that you've given it, or it breaks it down and it gives different tasks to different experts. So it as a giant entity, right? ChatGPT is very good at a lot of things, but it's not the best at everything. It's in fact, it's a jack of all trades, master of none. What this Mistral method does is it takes a lot of small special purpose AI that are better at these tasks than ChatGPT, and it combines them together to create a really interesting result, and one that actually uses a much less memory, uses much less space. It's overall a more performant model. So you're seeing techniques like this mixture of experts type technique coming out that is going to be a real challenge. And you're going to see things like OpenAI's Sora, which is generating just phenomenally good video. It's probably made with a model not unlike that. I would imagine this is speculation here, but it's probable that a mixture of experts is the next sort of state of the art that's going to be coming out. So that's
So
kind
with
of
that,
the latest on ChatGPT. Yeah.
yeah, with that mixture of experts, so you said it was Mistral?
Yeah, I think it's Mistral or Mixtral. Let me one moment and I'll find the actual name for you.
Okay.
I read it it's Mixtral. It's
M I
Mixtral 8x7.
8 by 7. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll
Well,
go ahead and I'll drop the paper into this chat here for us.
oh, thank you.
Yeah.
What it sounds like that's kind of like the next evolution of what ChatGPT does, because you're right. Sometimes you ask ChatGPT a thing and you don't get the right answer. And then, like you
Mhm.
said, prompting, you can rephrase it or you can dig a little deeper on it, and then you start to get answers that are closer to what you want. But this, I mean, the way you said, like it goes and finds like 8 experts to go through to compare to, then it decides which way it's going to go for your answer. Um, I mean, that's just, I mean, to me, it's the next step for ChatGPT. So ChatGPT, this is something that my students and I run a student podcast for Elite Academic Academy, and we had our chief innovations officer on there with us, and we talked about it, and we talked about like what's the uses for it right now, and we wanted to get some honest answers. Like we wanted to know exactly what students are using it for, because I know what I would use it for, but I mean, I'm an old man. These are students that are, growing and learning, and they grew up with this phone in their hands. So what are they doing? And what was really
Yeah.
cool and refreshing was a lot of them were reluctant to use Chat GPT because, and I'm going to quote, it felt like cheating. And I thought that was really cool to hear from students to say that, like, oh, a lot of them use it like the AI plugins. So like Canva, I'm a massive fan of Canva. I love Canva. And Canva has their AI wizard and their AI magic and all that. Where you can like fluff your text, you can have it create AI images that are just bizarre, like alien looking things. But that's the most we saw from students. So I know that the AI could do a lot more than, of course, just like you can't, of course, you can tell AI and ChatGPT, hey, write me a paper on the history of paper towels, and it's going to do it. I don't know why you'd want that, but you can use it for a lot more things, like you said, like the video. You can make, high quality video off of that. And when you mentioned prompting, it brought me up to a question that I saw on social media. So I'm friends with a very talented artist named Aaron Bartling. Aaron Bartling has done
Mhm.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comic covers. He did the iconic Last Ronin cover that has like all the 3 dead turtles in the back with the ghost ones with their hand on the shoulder of the Last Ronin. And he posted up that, because he's a very big opposer of AI, of course. And he posted up, somebody commented and attacked him, saying that like you don't realize how much hours go into the prompts we craft. You don't realize all this, and they're trying to make the AI prompt sound like an art form. Do you think that's correct? I know a lot of work goes into it, but I want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Okay. So this is kind of an interesting topic, right? Because you have prompt engineering. I just, in fact, today saw an article that said prompt engineering is dead, and had a picture of a bunch of people standing on a coffin with prompt engineering written on top of it. So it's a great question, and I think prompt engineering certainly is not dead. I think it's emerging. So people are, right now there's a lot of hype around AI. So you have a lot of people touting themselves as prompt engineering experts, or adding these sort of titles to their roles. And there is some value in their minimal understanding of it, but prompts themselves are an extension of the development of large language models, which is still actively happening. And as the large language models get better, prompt engineering will become more complex. The example I gave you there was the example I gave previously was telling it, let's think step by step, having that be part of your prompt. And suddenly this behavior emerges from the large language model that has it reasoning. It's actually called zero shot reasoning. And there's another one called chain of thought reasoning, which zero shot chain of thought is let's think step by step. The LLM will start to list out the steps. And then by doing that, it creates a cohesive, um, you know, context that it then is able to answer questions better. certainly that's absolutely a discipline that I think is going to emerge. And I'll say something a little contentious. I actually think programming computers is going away and it's going to be favored. It's going to go away in favor of prompt engineering. As a developer, I can write code, but AI can write code also. The difference is I have to be able to tell the computer what problems are important to solve. And that's essentially prompt engineering. I think the job of the future computer programmer is going to be prompt engineering. And I think prompt engineering is harder than most people realize. I also think that right now we're in a beginning stages of it, and the prompt engineering being done is very unsophisticated. I think there's a lot more behavior we're going to pull out of this. I think eventually when we have an AGI, the autonomous general intelligence, this sort of next stage of AI, we're going to see that probably come about as a result of prompting. So I would actually kind of double down the other direction and say prompting is probably far more important as a technology than people realize. And I also agree that yes, saying that it took me hours to make this when it takes 100 or 200 or 500 hours to make a piece of art, not comparable, right? There's no way to compare those two things. But there's definitely prompt engineering is also a discipline and it's worth looking into and becoming good at because good prompt engineering can get results out of large language models that are still being studied today. The zero thought chain of prompt paper that I just cited is from like December of 2013. And right now we're in March of 2014. I'm sorry, December of 2023. And we're in March of 2024. I keep doing that too with the years. Getting old.
It sucks,
But
I
yeah,
know.
those yeah, but these techniques are new, right? We're in an active phase of research of AI. It's been around for a long time, but this latest phase has really been changed by the transformer technology that underlies all of these new tech, all of these new AI models. And that paper was published in 2017. So we're only about 7 years from the paper that changed everything about AI. And all of the tools we're seeing now are built on top of that transformer architecture, which is new. So we're at the beginning, like, this is like 1994 in the internet. We're at the very beginning of what's going to explode. And yeah,
And that's insane. And I love how you put it like these are they're two different disciplines. It's literally apples and oranges. You can't say, you know, the amount of time an artist puts into their quality piece is the same or better or less than what somebody puts in doing prompt engineering because it is two totally different things and they could both take massive amount of times um, because like you said it's becoming its own discipline. It's not, there are some people out there that just they think they can type in a few words here and there and all of a sudden they're experts. But to actually take it as a craft and learn it, I think that's exciting. And I think that's important for people to realize that that's something that coming down the road, not too far down the road, that's something people should really look at. So if somebody would want to like learn about prompt engineering and doing this the right way, do you have any recommendations on books or websites or anything they can check out?
yeah. I mean, so Google has some really excellent resources, and I say Google, I mean Google, the company proper. They have in their documentation on Gemini some really excellent resources on how to prompt, how to effectively prompt an LLM, and it has some of, I say LLM, that's large language model, just in case. Um, they've taken some of the latest research and they've made it very approachable for pretty much anybody to get into. Some of the research that I'm sharing in the text chat right now, this is academic research. So you're going to see some stuff that's very academic. It's very computer sciencey. It's not approachable to everybody. Though they've put together some resources that are fantastic on how to prompt effectively, and they're pulling from these academic resources. That being said, it's worth going back to the original papers. A lot of these authors have written them in a way that's designed for people who are not computer scientists. They're designing them for biologists. They're still academics, but they're not experts in computing or in AI. So they're designing these papers and writing them for a different audience. They're actually quite good, and it's worth looking into, scholar.google.com, LLM prompting, see what you find in the keywords there. You're going to see some really amazing stuff. And provide a list of resources here to you that you can share with everybody. Just a big long, yeah, a big long list of resources that they can check out if they want to get more information about prompting.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Yeah, because it is right now. It's not just the future. It's right now, and it's what we're going, So
Yeah.
to me, that's super cool. I do want to ask a pop culture-ish question to you, because it's something that's popped up in the circles that I run in. So I do a lot of reporting and reviewing with action figure companies.
Mhm.
And one company caught a whole lot of flack about a month ago. They have a new line coming out with these like I guess almost like Big Trouble in Little China, style figures. They got the swordsman, you got the guy with the tank top, the tough guy. Very cool looking action figures. Um, they revealed the packaging, and right off the bat, somebody was like, "This is AI art." How do they know? Because there were six fingers. They weren't quite holding the sword. Um, and I mean, I was seeing some like giants in the business condemn this company and say that they're never going to support them again. What are your thoughts on that? A company using that, they never flat out said it was original art, but they never said it was AI art until they were called out. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this is the big question, right? Is how disruptive is AI going to be to people's jobs, right? We're seeing in the tech industry right now where a lot of people, for those that don't know, in the tech industry, there have been a massive number of layoffs in the last 6 months. A lot of engineers that are very experienced, some people have been, 20 years at the company and they were laid off in the last 6 months or so. So there's a lot of debate on what is actually causing the layoffs. And one of the things that keeps coming up is, well, AI, right? Now you have an AI that can code. So it's going to come up as part of the debate. How contained is the damage? Uh, and really, it's hard to tell at this point, right? AI is going to continue to do things that we humans could do previously, but that required, the reasoning that we have that AI can approximate, right? It's not actually reasoning. It's just estimating the next word, but it's doing it more and more accurately as we build these models up. Um, and I'll give you, I guess this is going to have to be an opinion, at this point. This is not rooted in, any kind of research here. It's just my opinion on it. AI is just a tool like any other tool. In programming, we've had tools for a long time. In art, you've had tools change over time, right? You started with pen and paper, progress to like Photoshop, and there was a while where Photoshop was a really contentious tool too. Like you're going to get rid of the compositor, and really the compositor just shifted to using it. The unique skill that they had transferred to the new tool. And it's my opinion that AI is the same way. We're going to see AI being used more in probably production art, I would imagine. So you are going to see these situations where you have a production art house that's cranking out a ton of, 3D models or frames for an animation or something like that. That's the kind of stuff AI is probably going to be able to do for us. But it's still, to be wielded correctly, needs to be in the hands of a skilled person. It's just like any other tool. So you are going to see companies that make attempts, right? They're going to be they're going to be the case that everybody cites when they say this is why it can't work, because they're going to try, and you can't fault them for it. They're going to try to see what the boundaries are of what they can do, but the art isn't perfect. It's not wielded by somebody who's skilled. If somebody were skilled designing that packaging, they could take the AI, they could come up with concept art and then take the AI and polish it up. But what they did was they took a prompt, they typed out, here's what I want the image to be, and tried to pass that off. Not in the hands of a skilled artist, it's not going to work. So I think, yes, you're going to see some jobs go away, but I think you're going to see them shift into other areas, probably the more creative areas, which is the stuff artists kind of want to do anyway. Um, I would say my overriding opinion, is that companies don't want to stay stagnant, they want to grow. So if one developer can do more, one artist can do more, then the company's just going to do more. They're still going to hire people to do it, but now instead of one game a year, they can make 10, or they can improve the quality dramatically of the games that they do produce. Hiring more people means they can do more stuff, which means they can make more money. So I don't necessarily see it as the sort of apocalyptic, replacement of everybody's job. we saw in factories, like machines came in and they did replace a lot of the labor jobs that were there, but those labor jobs shifted to other parts of the industry. They shifted into white collar overall from 1950 to now. Um, income has gone up, houses are bigger. Yes, we do have more income inequality, but overall, you've seen general quality of life improve. So that's my take
It's
on that. That's personal opinion, I should say.
no, it's a really good point though, because you're right. There have been tools forever in every different type of industry. And like you said, it still takes a skilled person to wield those tools. That way you have the correct output no matter what it's going to be, whether it's an image or like whether it's like you said for a factory, manning and managing the machinery that's in there. Um, and yeah,
Yeah,
you do still have to be talented. You can't like I'm a writer. I'm not an artist at all. I couldn't take a prompt, make art and feel like I can go through and, fine tune it and make it what I wanted to. I wouldn't know how. I would just like, it's gonna have six
right.
fingers.
Right.
So
Yeah, as a writer, your eye for detail would be in the details of writing. You would make sure that the narrative was good and that the story made sense. An artist is going to make sure that there's five fingers where there should be and that the pose is natural and all of these things that go into the artistic, development. All of the skills are still there and they're still required to wield the tool properly. So, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
No, that's
I
a
have a
really good point. Go ahead.
Yeah, I do have one other like good example of what I think is interesting about it, right? And I think I may have shared this before with you, but I'll share it again. Um, Art also has a way of sort of bucking technology and shifting in the opposite direction. I saw a really good example of this. We went to Italy a couple of years ago, and we were walking through one of the art galleries. And from 1000, it was all the way back to like 1000 AD. We were seeing these amazing pieces of art, and it progressed and got more realistic, really hyper realistic up until about the 1800s. And then suddenly it completely shifted in abstract direction. And you had, Impressionism and you had Cubism and you had abstract art. And the reason that art shifted that way was because of the invention of the camera. And because a camera could take an exact replica of the thing, creating hyper realistic art wasn't the interesting thing anymore. Anybody could do it. So now artists shifted into creating abstract art. And you still see that to this day. A lot of our logos and abstractions are, most of our art is abstract. It's not hyper realistic. So it shifted the human taste for art into what is difficult. And I think that's going to continue. Maybe production art is going to change a little bit, but you're always going to see a human appetite for the novel. And if anybody can do it, if it doesn't require skill, it's not novel anymore. So I think what we're going to see is fundamental as the shift is in technology. I'm actually really excited to see how art is going to change in response. I think an art gallery in 2033 is going to look completely foreign to somebody in 2023. I think it's going to be really interesting.
That's a really good point. And especially like you said, if you look towards the future, I mean, is art gallery going to be full of screens with like more, interactive media than even
Yeah,
what we're used to now?
sure. I
Um,
mean, will you visit it on a VR headset and never actually go into the building, or do you want to see the paint on the canvas again? Maybe because a lot of art galleries are screens, or a lot of the art we see is on a screen, something different about having paint on canvas that AI will never be able to do. So you may see that become the shift.
right. And
Something like that.
in my degree program, we touched on it's transmedia, where you have
Hmm.
storytelling throughout different forms. That could end up being away we go too, where there's some sort of combination between that print media, but also the interactiveness of video and whatnot. So, I mean, you're right. Yeah, a museum could look completely foreign,
Yeah.
when I'm 60 or 70, and I probably won't be able to see by then, but it could look a lot different. We're gonna need one of
It,
those like Google chips or something, or like the Tesla chip.
yeah, it could. I mean, you just looking now at the potential for augmented reality to change an art gallery. You could walk into the gallery and have art on the walls, but have so much more information capable if you just pick up the headset and take a look through it. Now suddenly you're in an enriched environment, and just little things like that are going to change how we interact with these technologies.
I came across an example of that back when I used to teach marketing.
Mm,
Out in Australia, there's a museum that has where you walk in and it's a, like they have the dinosaur exhibits and whatnot.
mm,
And if you go in there and you scan the AR code and you go through it, you start to see everything come to life. You see what
mm.
those dinosaurs would have looked like walking around the museum. And
Yeah.
it was pretty simple back then. But I feel like there's got to be people right now that have perfected that to the point of right now until everything jumps again and there's no such thing as perfection. But
Yeah.
I think it could make the world more enriching, especially for people that what if you're just stuck, like what if you don't have the means to go travel? What if you just know your little podunk town, That's how it was for me growing up. I knew the high desert
Mhm.
and it would be nice to travel even if it's just like Ready Player One style to see things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that'd be really cool. I have a really important question to ask you, and it's kind of stupid, but I think a lot of people will ask this
Sure.
question. Um, do you thank your AI when you after you write up a prompt?
Do you think you are AI? Is
No, do you
that
thank
what you
it?
asked?
Do you
Do I
thank your
thank my
AI?
AI?
Yeah.
Oh, that's actually a very good question. I do not. And I've never actually even thought to thank my AI, because I don't think to thank a hammer, right? For me, it's still, I suppose maybe, and maybe this will be a generational problem where I'm looked at as a thankless jerk. That's just an old cringy, curmudgeon guy because
You
I don't
never
thank the
thanked his
AI.
AI.
I never thanked him, right? Like he came and he did all this stuff for me, and I never said thank you, and I was real mad. Um, yeah, no, wonderful question. I think that's actually that's a very interesting loaded question because it speaks to how you view AI. Is it a tool or is it an entity? Is it have actual thought or is it just mimicking human thought processes? And I think when you feel compelled to thank your AI, that might be about the time where they start getting good enough to simulate actual intelligence.
That's yeah,
Maybe.
exactly, right? Because I think sometimes we jump into AI and we get the little bit of assistance here and there. And I've done it a few times. Just I wanted to see if it's always the canned response
Hmm.
because right, it learned this information, so it should give me the information back that it learned to say if I ask that. It's
Yeah.
given me multiple different ways of saying you're welcome.
Yeah. I
And
I
it's weird.
Yeah, well, and even more interesting, right, is if it says the right things, does it actually feel gratitude? Like, thank you is a response of gratitude. So, does it feel good about being thanked? And we use language as our sort of modality for communicating that with people. We also have other modes like our body language and our expressions and the tone of our voice, things like that, our cadence that that reinforce the words that we're saying. And with a large language model, there's, how little information we get. It's just text. We don't have a voice to hear. And when we do have a voice, it's a created voice, it's an emulated one that kind of fakes rough emotion or at least cadence, but it's faking it. It's not actually generating an emotion and then responding by altering the voice yet. It's Yeah, wonderful question. It's actually not a dumb question at all. I think it's it speaks to how we view AI.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, you think AI, of course, you have to be thinking, Terminator and Skynet and everything. And because I've talked to quite a few people about like, do you think you're AI? Just because I want to get inside people's heads. And when they say yeah, and I ask, well, why? Well, I don't want it to come after me once it, takes over the world. Like I want
Right.
to be on its good side. And you're like, I mean, but you're
Yeah.
right. It's all about perspective and how we look at it versus like how you looked at it. And I really like that. Like you said, I wouldn't think a hammer. It's a tool.
Right.
So it's very cool to see the way we look at things very differently. And everybody does. We all see things
Hmm.
differently. And AI is just the next confusing tool that's going to have us thinking that. Because I imagine when computers were first, created and whatnot, people were probably like, hey, thank you, whatever that. Apple was back then. And all it is a
Yeah.
box with all of the machinery created by humans making it work. Um,
Right.
but
Yeah.
yeah, no, I had to ask it just because it's been a question that comes up quite a bit, and I think it falls into the humanity of us because we all want to be thanked, right? We want to be appreciated, but does this feel that, you know?
Yeah.
Because we've all been there. We don't want to be unappreciated when we do a lot of work or whatnot, and it's the worst feeling in the world.
Right.
So, I mean, I
Yeah.
don't want the T1000 to come after me either. So,
Right. That's it's fair. I mean that at some point we're gonna have to try to figure out what we don't as humans understand our own brain. We don't understand what emotion is. We don't understand motivation. One person could be highly motivated by something, and another person is completely demotivated by it. And what is AI going to feel about it? Is AI going to be motivated or demotivated? Same statement, same tone of voice can be have completely opposite effects depending on the person. So now, we're starting to talk about like what makes us, it's really comes down to what makes us different as people. And how is AI different from all of that? Right now, it's just emulating an average of every person, right? Every article in Wikipedia, every book that's ever been written, roughly, right? Right now, it's just creating a sort of average of all that. And that's what it gives us back. And it adds some randomness so that it responds differently each time you ask because it knows that we're not going to believe it. But you can actually, funny enough, in OpenAI and ChatGPT, you can change the seed, the random seed that they're using to generate the response. If you copy and paste that, it'll feed you back the same response every time. And it's just proof that it's a computer program, right? You in the OpenAI API, yeah, you can feed it a seed, which is just some random value, and that's what alters the effect of the response that comes out of the AI. And you can copy and paste it and get repeatable results, which computers as a tool, that's an important thing to be able to get repeatable results. It's the whole point of computers.
right.
So yeah.
It's a good point. Now, to close out the conversation on AI, I want to ask you like, let's look 6 months down the road. Like, what do we see advancing and being created in the world of AI, and how will it affect us as just regular average Joes?
Yeah, definitely. So you're already starting to see this sort of proliferation of AI tools, right? So specific purpose stuff. You're seeing like an example here is in video. I have a team that's using that to create, informational videos for college students, right? That video would have normally taken, 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month to do, to edit, to put together the script, all that. The team's able to get it done in about, 6 hours. And it's just pulling stock footage from different stock video sites and putting together this, AI generated voice and doing some little tricks to get the editing to work. But it's there, right? You're going to see more of that. You're going to see people trying to build better AI tools. Take a look at like Y Combinator. Their current interest right now is AI and spatial, which spatial would be like Vision Pro or MetaQuest. It's the 3D environments, immersive environments. I think you're going to see some of that start to come up. I think you're going to see, interestingly, some of those go away. Some companies right now are just basically a fancy, shell that goes back to ChatGPT. As AI assistants come out, ChatGPT has the ability now for you to create your own in their interface. That's going to get better, and a lot of these startups are probably going to go away because they're just not adding a whole lot of value other than a pretty picture, a pretty interface to an already very powerful system. Um, Probably one of the bigger shifts. Oh, hold on, lost that train of thought. There are a lot of them, right? It's hard to even pick one thread because they're all going to change dramatically. Um, I think. Oh, back onto it. Uh, so I think the biggest change you're going to see is tools that chain together the input and output of other LLMs or other models to create, sort of like Mixtral's doing with the mixture of experts. But you can do that manually, and you can stitch together the output and the results of different types of AI in order to generate a pretty complex result. And there's already research. Microsoft has this tool called AutoGen, AutoGen, which is essentially it allows you to create AI bots that talk to each other to accomplish a task, with a third one supervising the process. So the manager bot will talk to the other two bots and will say, here's the task you need to accomplish. It'll have another one check the results of it. All of these just using a large language model that's available today. Uh, you're going to start to see more of those come out. A good example of this, there's a Hugging Face space, which I'll actually share with you here shortly. It takes an image and it uses an AI model to determine what is in the image. So it can take the image and it can describe to you the scene. You can then take the output of that in text and put it into a music model that generates AI music. And along the way, you can put it into another model that refines the prompt and says you're going to take this text and optimize it for a music generation AI. So you can have one that does that, and then you feed it into the music model. You, as a user, take an image, you put it in the system, and out comes music that matches the image. And that's a Hugging Face space that somebody created. I'll actually share it with you, but it really sort of shows you um, the possibilities here of chaining together these AI tools. And this one is done with just a simple Python script. Anybody that has, a couple of hours of programming experience can read it and follow it.
That's incredible. Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to share it in the chat
Wow.
right now. You can, and this interface I'm sharing, he actually created a UI for it in Hugging Face that you just click the button, upload your image, and boom, there you go. Out pops the music.
Oh man. Let me put
Yeah,
these in my little chat that I have all my saved links. There we go.
no
I'm
worries.
gonna
Yeah.
have to check that out. That's so cool.
Yeah. And that's just the start, right? You're seeing the beginning of people being able to do that. If you're really interested in getting up to date and seeing the latest stuff, like huggingface.co is the best place to go. And this is not an advertisement. I don't work for them. They're literally the forefront of every AI. This is like where everybody shares their AI work. It's like GitHub or, it's like GitHub, but for AI stuff. Um, and they have a weekly, actually, I think it's daily papers that they share. So the newest AI that just got published, they share that research right there. So you can see what's coming in the next 6 months.
That's amazing. Well, I'll make sure
Yeah.
I put all these links in the description. So if you're watching this on YouTube and you're like, hey, I want to learn more, it's all gonna be there. Just in
Yeah.
return, you should probably like subscribe and like our video. Um,
Do.
but no, I learned so much already. I try to stay up on it as an educator in this world. I want to stay up on it. I want to be ahead of the curve, and that way, if there are any pitfalls that are coming, I can let my students know, so that way that they don't fall into those pitfalls. So I appreciate all the updates on this. I appreciate all the info, and I appreciate your time, John. I know you're a busy man, and I always enjoy talking tech with you. It's always fun. Um,
Yeah. It's a
and
pleasure.
and in the chat, I mean not in the chat, in the comments, if there's something tech related or AI related, anything like that you want to hear us talk about, please leave it in there. It could be crypto, it could be AI, it could be anything, it could be video games, to anything tech related. Leave it in the comments, and we would love to address that in a future episode. All right, before I sign off, make sure you visit pastramination.com for news, reviews, and more. Follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, X. We are on Pinterest, where we're actually very massive. Well, Pinterest, we're on Threads, where nobody's really massive, but we're on there too. But yeah, give us a like, give us a subscribe, give us a share, all that fun stuff. John, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. No problem. All right, everybody, you take care.